with a significant fuel price hike predicted for this month, economists have warned that there will also be an impact on food prices. Consumers are already under pressure due to electricity price hikes and the impact of the COVID-19 economic aftershocks. The petrol price, the increase comes as Brent crude oil prices recover as demand returns for global trade and travel, with the hopes that vaccines will restore normal economic activity. Let's now speak to Thabile Nkunjana, an economist at the National Agricultural Marketing Council, on this. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. This, one would imagine, will have a ripple effect. With petrol increasing, the impact will also be felt by consumers on food prices.
Yes, definitely, Mpho. Thanks for having me. Yeah, as you can call, as things stand, like prices have still been like compared to the same time last year. And that, as you already mentioned, that has to do majorly with the COVID-19 and the price increment that we see earlier on this year from the global market. So now that means for the normal consumers in South Africa, it is going to be even worse now that we are going to see some increment on fuel prices, like as of this month, because that will tell us the fact that, remember, agriculture is one of the major consumers of our fuel, and April is one of the months that we normally see an increase in consumption for fuel. Remember, towards May, we're going to be beginning to harvest the crops that we planted last year in summer, and then also preparing for the winter. And then again, like 75% of our grains, which is normally what most South Africans are consuming, is transported through roads. So the fact that fuel is going to increase and prices are already up as things stand, it is going to be even more of a problem. As you know, that the economy is not doing very well. As already mentioned, the issue of electricity, and then the stagnant in terms of our vaccine. So all those things are going to feed in and all the problem, and it is going to be a problem as far as the food is concerned. But that's something we're going to be monitoring. And remember, we're also expecting a bit of more of our food for major crops such as maize and wheat. So all those things are going to monitor them. But I think it is likely that April towards May, consumers should be ready to pay a little bit more. As you can see, like now, it is the case. As much as we saw a bit of a decrease in prices, but they are still high.
Now, inflation remains low at 2.9%. Does this now then translate to perhaps companies not having the ability to raise prices? Is this a possibility?
It's going to be a tricky one. That one is a tricky one because, remember, there are a number of things that feed into all these things. For an example, as you mentioned, that inflation, it has kind of stayed almost the same. But the problem with that is the companies also themselves are feeling the effect of the COVID-19, and that, of course, is going to make them even suffer. Remember, they have retrenched a couple of waves of people already, so they are also trying to cope because they didn't make much money in terms of since last year coming towards this year. So it's going to be even a problem for them when these fuels are going up, and then if prices remain the same. That is not going to be very likely, but it's something that we're going to be monitoring. But it is not going to be easy if one will want to do that.
You've spoken about the different crops and how, harvesting happens as we go into the different months. How will farmers be coping here, especially when it comes to one aspect that you mentioned is transporting the actual goods, but what about fueling the tractors that are quite essential when farmers are working?
Yeah, well, for farmers, I'm not going to lie, it is going to be very tricky. Remember, fuel on its own is only it's a one direct factor that enters into the production system, but the other indirect factors, they get more into that. They also increase the cost of production. That is, you're taking your fertilizers, your transportation, all those, and so forth. So the part, for example, in South Africa, about 13% of cost for fuels is used for direct production, but most or the majority of that, it comes from other factors. That is your fertilizers, and then all those things such as transportation, they inject more of the cost into the production for the farmers. So farmers are going to be very much squeezed. That one we're not going to run away from its effects, and that again, it's going to have to directly affect the consumers, as I've already mentioned earlier on.
Farmers will be squeezed. Consumers are under enormous pressure. Is there a way of these costs being absorbed in any kind of way to ensure that the highly pressurized consumer is also able to put food on the table?
Yeah, that one is actually very tricky, given the fact that South Africa is a net importer for oil. So we're at the mercy of the global market. So what the global market offers in terms of price raise, that's what you're going to take as a country. Remember, South Africa doesn't have any oil. It depends entirely from these other countries to buy it. So in that aspect, it is always going to be an issue. Once we see these price changes from fuel, then for South Africa, it is always going to be a problem. Now, as far as to assist consumers, I think the support grant that the government is actually giving now, it might not necessarily be enough, but it can go a long way. Remember, it is coming to an end. I think the state will probably have to look into that and see if maybe some sort of adjustments they can be made in terms of extending that to maybe towards May, June, or even further. But remember, the South African economy is not doing very well given the issues with the load shedding, the slow processes of distributing the COVID-19 vaccine. So it is just a bit of a tricky situation at the moment. But as far as oil prices, South Africa has absolutely no control around that unless we can have some more, maybe if we can have some reserves of oil so that when these kind of changes globally happen, we don't necessarily feel the impact immediately when these things happen. Because remember, like now, the issue has been the North American countries who have been increasing their demand in terms of fuels because of the winter that are being experienced there. And when we are living there, we're going to be preparing for also their plantation again. So it's always going to be a problem when it comes to fuel prices. But I think for consumers, we can only hope for the best in terms of improving our economy. But then again, factors around that are going to also play a critical role, especially the issue of the electricity and controlling the COVID-19 problem.
Now, you know, you speak about the worst case scenario here as you detail the ripple effect and the impact of these increases. But can we expect any sort of respite? I mean, more and more people are taking vaccines and, you know, there's a lot of confidence around the rollout of vaccines. And the global economy is also starting to open up. Is there light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes, definitely. There is some hope. But that, as you're mentioning, the globally aspects of it, it's that other countries are doing well in terms of distributing these vaccines. So their economies are opening up a little bit. And that, again, it's a good sign. But for us, South Africa, it would be a good sign if we are to adopt at least some measures that will increase the rollout of this vaccine for the COVID-19. Because at the moment, that's one critical thing that is going to delay the opening up of the economy in South Africa. Remember, we were anticipating another third wave. We're going towards the Easters. So if we were to emerge not much affected by that, then perhaps going towards May and June, we might probably see some relief in terms of our prices. As I already mentioned earlier on, that we are expecting a larger crops for the major parts, for the major crops that we are producing, such as maize, your barley, to mention a few. And also from the global market, I've just saw that today Russia has been thinking about increasing tariffs and whatever. And remember, tariffs are actually going to be a problem for us as we import a lot of wheat. So all those things are kind of pushing the whole situation to a positive vibe. But then again, it will depend on how the South African government and the economy react to all those factors. But there's actually some hope. I believe we can be hopefully in terms of seeing some relief. But that is not going to come very easy, as I said, that there are a couple of things that needs to be put in place to assist all this kind of the relief that you would like to see.
Thank you so much for your time. Thabile Nkunjana, an economist at the National Agricultural Marketing Council, saying that consumers are in for a tough time. Petrol increasing, that of course having a ripple effect on food prices.